I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. Mr. Walsh, would you like to lead us in the flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sunshine Statement. All requirements of the Open Public Business Meetings Law have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting are posted in the Borough Hall, Oradell Public Library, Oradell Public School main office, and filed with the Record and Town News, and all persons requesting such notice. Mrs. Walker, would you like to read the mission statement?
The Oradell Public School is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, and responsible citizens.
At this point in the meeting, we will allow public comment on reorganization session items numbers 7 through 14 only. Please remember to state your full name and address each time you address the board, as well as sign in with this information. Will the first person wishing to be heard please step forward or raise your digital hand via Zoom? Okay, seeing none. So for tonight's board secretary report, I'll be reporting on the November 2021 election. The annual school board election for the Oradell Public School was held on November 2nd, 2021. Voting was conducted for 3 seats to the Board of Education, each for a 3-year term. The results of the election were as follows. Mrs. Elena Acosta, 1,401 votes. Mrs. Mary Catherine Norian, 1,196 votes. Mr. Gregory Darian, 1,031 votes. And Mrs. Robin Levy, 938 votes. The candidates elected were Mrs. Elena Acosta, Mr. Gregory Darian, and Mrs. Mary Catherine Norian. A copy of these results will be entered into the official meeting minutes. The elected candidates may now step forward and will be administered the oath of office. Captain, I have an extra one.
Captain, I think it's attached to this.
Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gregory Darian,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Okay. I state your name.
Gregory,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
Do solemnly swear or affirm
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 919:4-1,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1,
or disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can take your seat. Hey, Greg. At this time, I'll do roll call. Mrs. Acosta? Mrs. Negum?
Here.
Mr. Griffin?
Here.
Mrs. Norian?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Darian?
Here.
Mrs. Nichols?
Here.
At this time, I'd like to open up for a nomination for the President of the Board of Education. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Like
Yes.
to make a motion to nominate Dorothy Watson Nichols for president.
Second.
Oh, are we? I don't know. I don't have the agenda. I mean, I'm trying to get to it.
Are there any other nominations? Would anyone like to make a motion to close for nominations? Rita? Okay. Okay, roll call for Mrs. Dorothy Watson Nichols for the President of the Board of Education.
You're being elected.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Do you want to vote? Yeah, you can vote yes or no or abstain. Yes, okay. Mrs. Negum?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Guess I'll abstain or say yes. Are our mics working? They are working? Okay, because I couldn't hear. But we can't, well, we can't hear in here. Okay. What is it, this issue? Is that better? Alina, say hello.
Hello.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Mr. Marmara, do we have to go over the expiration of terms or that's just for information purposes?
Just for information purposes. It's listed on tonight's agenda.
Okay. I'd like to open the floor for nomination of vice president candidate. Mr. Walsh,
I'd like to nominate Greg Durian.
Thanks, John.
have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Do we have any other nominations? Do I have to close the floor to nominations?
Mhm.
Do I have to make a
I'm
motion
pretty
for
sure.
that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
think so.
okay.
Okay. If there's no other
No other.
nominations, I'll make the motion that we nominate Greg Darian as vice president. Well, actually, you already made the motion, Mr. Walsh, so roll call.
Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Abstain.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. We'll move on to the code of ethics. We normally each take one section to read. Mr. Walsh forgot his glasses, so we're going to start with Mrs. Walker. Mr. Griffin, you're going to read paragraph number 3 after Mrs. Norian. We're going to go around and Mr. Darian can read the last 3 or whatever gets to him. So go ahead, Mrs. Walker.
Thank you.
I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
I will confine my board actions to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them.
I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run.
I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises nor take any action that may compromise the board. I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends.
I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, I will provide accurate information and in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its schools.
I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available for consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. I will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties. I will refer all complaints to the Chief School Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution.
Will someone make a motion for this number 6?
So moved.
By
I'll
Catherine?
second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions on the code of ethics? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. The rest of our agenda is items 7 through 14. Would anyone like to make a motion for consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Norian, second by Mrs. Walker, consent agenda 7 to 14. Does anybody have any questions on these items?
I have a comment.
Mr. Darian?
I can't believe we're only getting 35 cents a mile reimbursement.
Used to be 31.
I think the rest of the world has moved on. It's like 56 cents.
Any other questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
yes. Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, that concludes our reorg meeting. We'll move right into our public session, our public business session. If we could take a roll call.
Mrs. Acosta,
Here.
Yes. Here.
Mrs. Needham,
Here.
Mr. Griffin,
Here.
Mrs. Norian,
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Still here.
Mrs. Walker,
Here.
Mr. Walsh,
Here.
Mr. Darian,
Here.
Mrs. Nichols.
Here, we're going to open to the public for agenda items only. If you're joining us by Zoom, please raise your digital hand. Not seeing anyone, we will skip to the superintendent's report.
Good evening and happy new year. Welcome to the board to Mrs. Acosta. Congratulations on returning to your roles, Mr. Darian and President Nichols. I have always loved September and January most as an educator because it's always been about fresh starts. And yet this September and January aren't about fresh starts. They share something different instead. In September, we were filled with trepidation about what would school be like? How would we return 780 students to one space, unmasked in a large lunchroom while they ate, moving to and from specials? How would it work? And it did work. For the first 3 months of school, where 910 staff and students spent their day, we had 9 COVID cases. Then suddenly, we found ourselves faced with another challenge of dealing with a spike of cases, which mirrors the spike happening in schools, communities, and the state. So just as we started September concerned, we start January as well. So how do we proceed? We proceed as we always have, with protocols and with planning. So to give you an example, over break, our school nurse and our administrative team talked to many families about close contacts and positive cases. That's protocol number 1, open and honest communication. Because of that communication, we were aware early on of what this week would look like and how it would change as the week progressed. On Monday, approximately 160 students were absent from OPS. Tuesday, approximately 140, and today, approximately 110. Those were not all COVID-related absences. There are children who took a personal day today. There are children that the weather kept away from school today. And there are children who are still on vacation. We knew that all along. We knew that while we have approximately 90 students under COVID protocols today, that number is going to decrease every day this week. Tomorrow, there will be 80 students under COVID protocol exclusion. On Friday, it will reduce to 56, and on Monday, it will reduce to 39. We knew this all along. And so why did we know it? We knew it because of communication, we knew it because of planning, and we knew it because we put clear protocols in place. Will there be more cases? Yes. And we will deal with the cases as it comes. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be the first superintendent in the history of superintendents to quote Legally Blonde. But in the movie Legally Blonde, Elle Woods is in the courtroom and she solves the case. And she says, they say, how did you do it? She says, because the rules of hair care are finite and simple. Well, the truth is, that's what we need to do right now. We need to follow a set of finite rules. As I shared in my letter to the community today, we have rules that we follow for keeping individual classrooms and the school open. We have rules that we follow for dealing with close contacts and positive cases. These guidelines have kept OPS going last year, and I believe that if as a community we stay committed to following the guidelines given, we will keep moving forward. Following these rules may mean that one class will go remote at a time. It may mean that the school nurse will tell a parent that their child needs a COVID test to return to school. What we need right now is a united community focused on abiding by the guidelines we have been given and not trying to recreate them. On a more operational note, you will also see on your agendas, which is new from the agenda you received on Friday, the approval of the safe return plan. We submitted this plan in September. It is about the protocols we follow as a school. It has not changed. It is still on the front page of our website. It is the exact same plan you approved in September. We just have to reapprove it again, but I wanted to draw your attention to it as it is new. And those protocols are what have kept us moving forward. And I believe that if we all, as a community, stay united to following them, we can keep moving forward together. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Business Administrator's report.
No report tonight.
Moving to minutes, we have review of December 28th. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Marmara. We have approval for November 10th. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Walker, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Abstain.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Abstain.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes,
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, moving to committee reports. Mr. Darian, would you take administrative items?
Yes. I'd like to introduce items A1 and A2.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Before we go to this, can we make sure Mrs. Acosta gets a copy of them after, now that she's been sworn in?
Sure.
Because we'll be affirming them at the next meeting, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Abstain.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes,
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, moving to buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian.
Yes, we haven't had a committee meeting, I guess, since our last meeting. So I really have nothing to report there. There's been some developments in our superintendent report. I'm sure we all read that. So with that, I'm just going to introduce items B1 and B2.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Abstain.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Abstain.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes,
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Curriculum, Mrs. Norian.
I have no report.
Finance, Mrs. Shapiro.
Nothing to report at this time, though. I feel like we will need a finance meeting soon, so
Mhm.
we'll be in touch and coordinate with the committee. Tonight, I'd like to make the motion to approve items D1 through looks like D7.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? We actually need to meet fairly soon, right? Because we
Right.
had spoken before the holiday break regarding the number for the audit report, right?
Mhm.
So probably,
Be next week.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll get it on the calendar.
Any other questions on finance? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Abstain.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes,
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Delegate report, Mr. Walsh.
nothing to report.
Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Yes, I'd like to present F1, and if you'd all just make sure you see that D has been added to the personnel.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
Mrs. Acosta,
Abstain.
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mrs. Norian,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, policy, Mrs. Shapiro, you're on policy last year, right? You want to, anything to report?
No report.
Public relations, Mr. Griffin, and task force? I don't see it on the agenda, but you want to do public relations and task force?
Sure, no update on public relations. The COVID task force did meet today. And I just would give major kudos to the administration, the nurses, and anyone that has been working on this. The work by the school administration has been awesome. And today when we met, we went over current district data, community updates, any changes that are coming from the county related to a higher risk level, discussions of PCR versus rapid. But overall, just major kudos to everybody. And I think Ms. Bozio's put it well. The plan that was put forward from the beginning had protocols in place that have done the right thing to keep our kids safe. So big thank you.
Thank you. We'll open to the public at this time. Please raise your digital hand. Okay, not seeing anyone. We'll move to any old or new business.
Can I add one quick thing to my superintendent report?
Sure.
Thank you. Mrs. Norian, I forgot to also welcome you back to the board for your, what number year?
33.
I think that
Oh.
deserves recognition, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Mrs. Walker, did you have something?
Yes, I had a question on the Building and Grounds Committee meeting from, I think it was December 8th. I noticed the hallway project update. They're scheduling phasing of the basement hall. What does that include?
The hallway has several things. One is we're going to put in a doorway to separate the hall into two. That would allow for an area that's dedicated mostly for the students. And then the other area is for maintenance staff. The boiler room, the maintenance office will be separated by a physical doorway. As with everything with schools, you have to run that by quite a few people, the fire department, so on and so forth, just to make sure that the doors swing in the right direction in case of an emergency. They have the panic bars. We didn't know whether or not they had to be tied into the alarm system or the magnetic holders. So after going through all of that, it's determined that we just need doors with panic bars. We don't need to do all that other stuff. We also want to add better climate control. Right now, we just have several electric heaters in the ceiling. We want to change that out and have the mini split systems that provide heating and air conditioning to condition the space. But in order to do that, we have to run Freon and power through the concrete wall, and that needs to be done. Hole has to be cut, and we can't do that during the school because it's very noisy and disruptive, that type of construction. So we're scheduling that to occur either in the in the winter or over, I think, the holidays actually. What else with the hallway? We're going to replace the ceiling tiles to make that look a little nicer. But that's the hallway project, and it's just been slow going, mostly due to getting contractors to commit to a scheduled time to do the work.
The doorway now, if the hallway is running this way, where is this door? It's going to cut the hall in half?
Well, as you come down the stairwell, you'll go past the faculty lounge, then you'll go to the new classroom. Just beyond that will be a fountain, and then there's a minor leveled landing area, and right there will be a doorway. And then beyond that is a storage room, and beyond that is the boiler, and that'll just separate the mechanical section of the downstairs basement hall with one will be frequented by the students.
And the funding for this is coming from?
The funding is just within the normal budget. So
We budgeted for that last year and we didn't do it, or?
I don't remember on the budgeting side, but I know that we've been talking about this for quite a while. But it's not something that has to be done. I mean, obviously, the kids are utilizing the space in the basement. It's something that's been pushed off and pushed off, but now we're trying to get it done, by the summer. So to answer your question, is it in the current budget? Yes. Was it in last year's budget? I don't recall if it got to that level.
I don't remember. I think there was talk that maybe there would be extra work that needed
Yeah.
to be done.
So,
Okay, and the other thing on the auditorium project, there's talk of land taking over as a project manager.
yes, so with any construction project, there's a lot of different vendors. A lot of people will be coming in and out of the building. And one of the most difficult things is who manages that and oversees that things get done correctly. And the scheduling and to make sure that when there are complications arise, they get addressed right away. So in addition to that, we wanted to make sure that we remodel the room within a certain aesthetic that's pleasing. Everything will match the colors of the chairs and the carpeting and the paint and all of that. So Land Associates will provide those services for us. They'll help with the design as well as the execution of all the different vendors. And so what we're really talking about here, and right now, one of the things we're struggling with is with the ceiling tiles. These are acoustical ceiling tiles. Some have been water stained. We fixed the ceiling so we don't have continued leaks. So those will probably be fixed with paint. But some other tiles here, you can see have moved. Either they've got pulled up or so they need to be fixed, and we need to find a vendor who's comfortable with fixing these ceiling tiles. It would be a shame to have to rip them out and then replace them with something else. And so that's our goal at this point, is to find a vendor who could fix these. And then this way, all we have to do is just paint.
Land wouldn't, we're backing up a little bit. Is Land the only one that we're getting a quote from, or is he already hired?
Land is our architect, so they're the ones who help identifying vendors, and they'll be, running the bid process and evaluating and submitting the proposals through the business administrator's office.
But
That-
that's over and above what we pay him now, right?
Well, we have an arrangement with Land as our registered architect, and we pay them a nominal fee. It's not very much, just to be the architect of record. And their role here in the auditorium will be above and beyond that. Although it wasn't as expensive as I thought it would be. I don't know if I should say that publicly, but we are using a project manager. So as you can see, we have to do the flooring, the concrete sections have to be done, the carpeting has to be done, all the chairs need to be replaced, all the woodwork and the other sections have to be painted, the ceiling has to be painted, the foyer has to be painted, design color schemes have to be selected. There's a lot, we're talking about possibly replacing LED lighting on the stage, the lights here on the sides. The sound system, I believe, is okay. I don't think that was in scope, but we're evaluating everything, and depending on the final budget, that'll determine what will be done, and maybe some things might have to be scaled back a little bit, but we'll see once we get to that stage. But the goal was to completely remodel this room, including the foyer, so that it's a first-class facility, and it's done right, and it's done so that it's consistent with the architecture, the original architecture of the building, and it's something that we can be proud of.
And I'm all in agreement with that, but my question is, would it behoove us to get another estimate or two for project manager, which would be over and above the cost?
I'm sorry, we agreed to Land. Yeah, and so we didn't have conversations with going with another vendor, but if I guess we have problems with Land, we can, address that. That's one of the complications is we could find a designer, who's good with, the color palette and the swatches but identifying vendors and going through the bid process, so that, we have bid thresholds and things that we have to comply with state regulations. They may not be comfortable with that, Land is, I mean, they're architects, so, and then, to expect all that work to be done through our business administrator's office, and that our business administrator would have to do all that work, it would be impossible for them to do anything else. So,
I'm not
Yeah.
against that.
so you think that we should possibly consider just like going out to one or two other architects, or?
If there's time and we can do
Uh-huh.
that, why wouldn't we want to at least get a total of 3 bids, one from Land, one from two other ones, and then you have your third.
Okay, well, we'll have to discuss that. Sorry.
Okay.
Uh, you
I
know, we
don't
ha-
need to-
Yeah, we have our architect on record for that reason, though, I mean,
Right,
that's
right, but he's charging extra, so maybe,
right. Yeah,
sure, it's a big job. It's not something, and we want it done right, which I know we will,
Right.
but,
right.
Can you go back to the hallway and say, when is it supposed to be done? You mentioned the holiday break, but
Well, the concrete wall has to be cut. So I think that we have a upcoming holiday. We were trying to schedule that in. Martin Luther
The
King.
February break. Martin Luther King Day would be the earliest day since there's no students in the building. But it's been a struggle to get the contractor to commit to a date right now. And we're trying to get it in when students aren't in. It's going to be pretty noisy and disruptive.
so we're waiting to hear from them?
Yes. And we.
Are we
reached-
calling them
we
hourly?
reached- Yeah, we reached out multiple times, emails, phone calls.
I think we need to remember that it's not the company that we're waiting for, it's who they're subcontracting out to. So it's this big, telephone. We can try to see if there's anyone else that can do the work, but this is the only person we found originally.
February break is going to be here very fast, and we're not going to have our hallway done.
Hmm.
Mrs. Walker?
and the last thing, I don't mean to monopolize, I forgot my New Jersey School Board's newsletter that we had gotten back in December. And there was an article in there about what makes a good school board, the whole school board. And one of the things was that the school board is very involved in the school itself. And I thought it hit home because I think this board is very involved, and that's a good thing to reiterate.
Can I suggest that since involvement is something you had mentioned, and the auditorium is something else that you mentioned, that you chair the building and grounds this year?
I didn't go that far, but that we can do that. We can do that.
I'm just having fun.
Any other old or new business, Mrs. Shapiro?
I do. I just, like many of you, I've been around on the board for a while, some years now, and worked with a number of superintendents. And just to Mrs. Walker's point of, being involved in the building, and sometimes we're not here. And so this board update that you provided is exactly what we needed. It's so good. And we did not always have this, and to add the pictures and provide so much detail, I feel like I really have a pulse on what's going on. So I just wanted to say, I really appreciate you keeping us up to date like this. It really makes a difference, especially in these crazy times. So thank you.
I'm glad you're reading it.
Of course.
Mrs. Needham?
Yeah, I had a related question on the auditorium project. Just trying to understand like who from within the administration is going to be on point with the project management company, Like-
Was that about the basement or the auditorium?
the auditorium,
Uh,
because
so-
we're trying to find a project management company and have someone project manage it. So who on the administration side is on point for, helping them make decisions and things
Yeah,
of
that
nature?
would fall under our business administrator. He is responsible for custodial, maintenance, and any other construction projects. So, while our architect will help facilitate the bid process, it's the business administrator's office that actually, officially awards the thing. So it would all fall under John. But, when we remodeled the basement as an example, the work just starts when the contractors show up. It requires a lot of supervision, a lot of oversight. There are things that happen that if you're not closely attentive, it can go south very quick. And I'll give you an example. During the demolition phase, we had a bunch of thermostats that were on the walls, and the walls were removed, the thermostats were left alone. And, we told the vendor that they cannot, cut any of the wires. Well, inadvertently, wires got cut, and I don't know if it was the vendor or subcontractor, but somebody was in and inadvertently cut those wires. And that took out all the HVAC controls for, most of the building. And it was very disruptive, and we had to get it, they paid to get it fixed. They took care of it, but it was a big disruption. And so things like that, it's very difficult for a business administrator to stay on top of. That's why you have the professionals. That's why they come in on a periodic basis and they give us updates. And, we evaluate where we are. And that's their role. It's important.
Got it. And so the protocols for how frequently one would meet and get status updates, et cetera, that's going to be eventually finalized, right? That's coming basically.
Well, some of that we take on from the building and grounds perspective. So I call meetings for periodic updates.
Right.
And, so normally we meet once a month, and during a construction project, we might meet twice a month or 3 times a month. It all really depends on, how much work that gets involved and how disruptive we get to our administrative staff, because they have to, do a lot of work behind the scenes to prepare for these subcommittee meetings, between scheduling people to come in and the time and all of that, and then set the agenda and have everything supporting the agenda. So, but we do provide oversight from the B&G standpoint. And if you want to sit in on a B&G meeting, I'd be more than happy to to invite you. So.
Sure, thank you.
Any other old or new business? So we need to go into a closed session. So if someone would make a motion to go into closed session for both personnel and legal issues.
So moved.
Who did that?
Second.
Who made the motion? Catherine and Mr. Walsh, second. We'll be going to closed session. We do not know how long we will be, and we will be not taking action when we come back.